Hello there and welcome everybody. I'm Cindy Daychuck with Queen Bee Creations. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, you get a whole different view here. My messy table and my shipping area. And okay, it's funny how you move into a big space and you think, oh my gosh, I will never fill this. And then before you know it, you're full to bursting. So it's well used. We are going to be we're going to play with some watercolor today. And I am not a watercolor expert, but pretty much I'm not an expert on anything that I show you. And I think in some ways that's a good thing, because it means that whatever I show you, if you like it, it means you can do it too. Because I have not done years of practicing and perfecting, and it means you could get the same results. So this technique, so this is a piece of watercolor paper, and I am specifically using watercolor paper, not just a regular paper, because you need to have something that's going to absorb your color, that's going to absorb some of it. But that said, I'm not buying an expensive piece because, like I said, I'm not a pro. So don't agonize over. I mean, there's awesome watercolor paper that professionals buy by the sheet. Yeah, I just buy a pad from Michael's, okay? So just get a piece of watercolor paper and you get some watercolors. And here you can buy like the pack of, the hard watercolors that you're gonna add some water to. You don't have to buy the tubes, whatever you've got, whatever works for you. So I'm not looking at, if you're trying this as a test, you're just wanting to play, then, don't buy expensive product until you know that you're gonna like it, that you're gonna like to play, or you wanna do more of it. It's all a question of that. So I'm gonna flip you down to look at the table because I can't do this up here, and it's more important that you see what I'm doing and not see me. So hang on. All right. All that I have got here is a little plastic tray that I've put, because I have some watercolors in tubes, so I've put them out here. But you can see, if you use a tray like this and they dry out, you save this because you just add water to them and then they're good to go. So you can start with ones that are already hard, or squirt a little bit into a little plastic tray and save them. All right, we've got our watercolor paper just taped down to a board. This just helps. We're going to be adding a lot of water, so it just helps keep it from all curling up on us. And we're going to be using a salt technique to be able to add some patterning and some texture to our piece. So this technique requires a fair bit of water. So we're going to get all of our paper wet to start, and then we're going to start dropping in some color. And I'm going to keep the color fairly simplistic. So here I'm just kind of starting with a yellow, and watercolors dry a lot lighter. So we're actually going to be adding fairly dark colors to this, or fairly strong colors, just because we want it to be seen. And the difference too is that this technique is going to show up better on stronger colors than on lighter colors as well. So if we did something that was very pale, we perhaps wouldn't actually be able to see some of the salt reactions that we're looking for. So we're going to get some color on here. And I'm just going to tip the board around just so that I don't have a lot of pooling of water, and it just kind of softens and blends our paints together. And then I can see where I want to add in maybe a little bit more depth. So I'm just using indigo, and I've got a Payne's gray and a lemon yellow that's kind of working here. And let me just maybe strengthen that yellow in the middle before I start tipping things over. And again, just kind of let them run in together a little bit, get them mixing and merging. It's kind of the beauty of watercolor. Okay, and now for our salt. And this is just regular table salt. I'm going to kind of drop it in some spots. Maybe in a little bit of a wider direction, so a little bit more in the centers. Kind of the approximate center of where our flower or a dandelion would be. Now I also have a little bit of coarse salt, and I'm just going to drop these in kind of sporadically as well. And the coarse salt is going to obviously absorb a little more, so it's going to give a little bit more texture, and then just a light sprinkling all over. So I'm really looking at having a little bit more of a solid center to the few little dandelion flowers, if you will, and then a little bit looser out around it, where all those, well, I'm going to say where the fluff would be. And now all we do is we let this sit and we let it dry, and then we see what kind of patterning has happened when we come back to it. And this is our painting after it's all dry. So this is actually the next day, but you can see where the salt crystals have kind of absorbed. So now our job really is just to wipe all the salt away. Now, I'm going to, for this, use my Payne's gray. So just if you're kind of following along on my color selections, let me just take my gray over here because I don't want it too heavy. But I am going to go where each of my flowers center is, and I am going to kind of dot it in, because really my job now is just to add a bit of detail. And it doesn't take much detailing to start to create the impression of those kind of the soft undersides of all of those little dandelions with all those extra little pieces of salt looking like they're all the extra fluff blowing off in the breeze. Right? Not a lot of detail at all. And once we start looking at removing this, we start getting our band, you start to see what it might look like framed. Very abstract, but it gives you that impression of all of those dandelion little pieces of fluff kind of drifting off and floating off. You can see where we got the big pieces of salt versus some of the small pieces of salt. It never comes out the same way twice. And there's our finished watercolor. I don't have a frame that currently fits this or does it any justice, but I hope that more than anything else, this just shows you how easy it is to kind of play with watercolor. And you can start with something that's really pretty abstract. And I admit, didn't look like much until I drew in a couple of quick little lines. And then you get the impression of all of those dandelions and of the fluff around them and of it floating away. So recognize that you can use this medium to do things that aren't totally lifelike, right? That aren't exact replications, and that you can just build in a little bit of the look yourself and be able to have something that was really, really fun to be able to do. I hope you give this a try. I hope that you give yourself the freedom to kind of play with things and not look at them having to be perfect, and that you just have fun. You know, more than anything else, my hope on my channel is that you just allow yourself to play, that you give yourself the freedom to try. If I do something and you think, that looks kind of cool, that you just jump right in and try it out. It doesn't matter how good it is. I am not a great artist, guys. I'm giving you an idea of how to be able to try some of these things, but because I'm not perfect at it, because I'm not an expert at all these things, I hope that you see you don't have to be either. That it gives you something else to be able to play with and experiment with and have fun and be more like a kid again when we didn't have the fears of what somebody else was going to say. I had fun with this. I kind of am digging it, and it is nowhere near perfect. And I am perfectly comfortable in saying to you, you can do this. You can do this. Give this a try, and I would love to see. I definitely want to hear your thoughts on this one, guys. Let me know if you're going to give it a shot. I would love to hear that too. Definitely would love to see what you come up with. And as always, I look forward to seeing you on the next one. And until then, take care.